Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be Heartstopper season 3 review. Heartstopper season 3 came out today. Today is October 3rd. Like I binge watched it within a few hours. I've got a personal connection to Heartstopper as a queer kid. I think it's a good representation and it is a series which I think a lot of queer audiences and their parents should be watching. So if you haven't already watched it, then I suggest you watch season 1 and 2 because this video will potentially contain spoilers for season 3. So season 2 left us off at Charlie texting Nick, "I love you," and Tara and Darcy got back together and Elle was going to Lambert. Picking up season 3, let's get started. Compared to the previous 2 seasons, this one is a little darker and more mature themes. It also talks about physical intimacy and a lot of thought is put into mental health struggles more specifically. So I'm going to divide this by each character and their relationships. Let's talk about our favorites, Nick and Charlie first. Nick is my favorite character and I do think I share a lot of similarities with him. That's why he's one of my favorites. Notice in the previous seasons that Charlie goes through bullying and that results him in not eating. The season begins with Nick looking at Charlie and he can see hints of him not eating enough and he thinks that Charlie might have anxiety disorder, which later on when everything just blasts up and Charlie goes to his parents along with Nick and they talk about that he's struggling with his mental health as well as eating disorder. So Charlie's parents take him to the GP and then he's given a date for January. Yes, because that's NHS and the UK healthcare system is like that. But fortunately, Charlie's parents are rich enough to send him to another private clinic to get him treated, where he gets diagnosed with anorexia as well as OCD. But that is sort of the main issue of this entire season and how he has been struggling with mental health issues throughout his life, but it has been more prominent recently. And thanks to Nick, he was able to discover it and talk about it because Nick is a safe space. As for Nick, this is the very first season where we see Nick's point of view and there are slight hints of his mental health struggles and how he's dealing with stuff. With Charlie gone to the clinic for treatment, Nick is helping Charlie out with his mental health struggles, but he's suffering as well. Apart from that, there's also growing intimacy within them. Obviously, they're teenage boys, and what happens during teenagers, your testosterone level are really high. Obviously, there's a bit of physical intimacy that is also talked about in this season, not just for Nick and Charlie, but also for the other couples. And this is also the first season where we see a little bit of an argument between Nick and Charlie, and it sort of broke my heart a little. Apart from that, Nick is also in sixth form. He's looking at universities. Looking at universities means growing out of his town, Truham, to another cities. He goes to a few universities in Kent, Leeds and Oxford. I'm not quite sure why he wants to go that far away because he can just go to London. It's much near where he is located. If he's looking at like Kent, I don't know why he wants to go to Leeds, but that's another thing. The next couple that we're going to talk about are Elle and Tao. This season begins with Elle and Tao actually being in a relationship, around 3 or 4 months. Tao has matured a lot and there has been a lot of character development from season 1. As for Elle, she goes to Lambert where she creates art, very beautiful pieces of art, and she's also getting popular on social media where she's invited to a radio interview and that twists and turns into another issues relating to trans rights, which she did not sign up for because as a trans person, she already has her struggles, but that was a moment to talk about her art. So I think there's also a bit of hint to trans struggles and trans issues this season, which is always amazing to see. As for Tao, there's also a bit of a background of how his dad was. He talks about his struggles. I think it was not talked about as much as I would like to see. Another character with a lot of growth and development, which I think I saw, was Isaac. Isaac comes out as asexual and aromantic to Charlie in the first episode and later on to his friends as well because he's so tired of being surrounded by couples and he's alone all the time because all of his friends are in relationships. So Isaac goes back and forth with his friends talking and having conversations on how he feels about being asexual, specifically with Charlie as well as Tao because those two are his best friends. Another favorite couple of mine which were given a lot less screen time this season were Tara and Darcy. Tara and Darcy begin their relationship this season by moving in at Tara's house together, but she feels like she doesn't have enough personal space. So she talks to Darcy and Darcy moves in with her grandma who is very supportive. This season also explores Darcy's gender identity and she's exploring what being non-binary is like. Darcy is going with they them pronouns. Apart from that, we also see Tara exploring her university's options, dealing with her career issues just like myself. I could see myself. I can relate to Tara. But I definitely would have liked to see more of them and I do think they were given a little less screen time when compared to other couples and characters. Another focus was Tara and Nick's friendship, which I really like to see. Lastly, one of the other storylines and one of the characters which was highlighted a bit more was Tori and her relationship with Charlie. I really love about their sibling bond and how Tori stood up for Charlie at every point. Another storyline for Tori was her own personal struggles, where she feels like she doesn't have good enough friends who understand her. And she also meets this new boy called Michael, which she's not ready to label them yet, so I'm not sure if he's her boyfriend or not. Another character I think we need to talk about is Imogen and Sahar, and the growth Imogen has throughout this season is phenomenal. I think she's had the most growth out of all the characters. Imogen is trying to figure out her sexual orientation, and spoiler alert again, she kisses Sahar. I was so shocked because at the Halloween party they were making out and then going back and forth between Sahar and her, because Sahar thinks that she's just doing it for attention. I don't know if you guys know or not, but a lot of straight girls make out at parties to get the boys' attention because they think it's hot and fun. A sort of a fetishization, which Sahar thinks that Imogen is trying to do, but she's not trying to do that. She does not come out as anything yet, but she tells Nyx that she doesn't think she was ever into boys and she just did it for the attention. So I would definitely like to see Imogen in a relationship, or just like getting to know herself better in terms of her sexual orientation and as a person. I am all for sapphic relationships. Okay, we need more of them. Let's talk about the themes explored in this season as well. The main central stage was given to mental health struggles, which mainly Charlie goes through. So Charlie has anorexia and OCD. He was diagnosed with it and he had to go to private clinic which his parents sent him to, and at first he thought he would not like it, but he comes out quite strong from that. While Charlie's mental health was given quite an importance, I do think Nick was also struggling a lot with his mental health. It wasn't the same for him because he always had to be the strong one. I think like Nick is the biggest green flag, not only in Heartstopper but in general in the shows that I've watched. I think he's just phenomenal. I really like how he was very supportive of Charlie throughout the season. Now another part of the storyline was physical intimacy. So a lot of couples in the show get physically intimate, including Nick and Charlie, Tao and Elle, and Darcy and Tara. Another topic that this season focuses on is trans issues and body dysphoria. So Elle tells her side of the story, what it's like being trans, and she's trying to navigate her life and her relationship with Tao, who is a cis-het man. And I love how supportive Tao is, and even though he's quite supportive, cannot truly understand what being trans is like. More of a background issue is also family dynamics. So there's Nick struggling with his brother, slightly estranged side of the family, but his aunt is quite supportive since his mother wasn't there in this season because the actor who plays Nick's mom was focused on another project. She should not be a part of Heartstopper. And there's obviously lots of tension. Charlie and his family, specifically his mom, she doesn't really understand his relationship with Nick and how Charlie is feeling, but there's a bit of backstory added to it that she had struggles and had a strained relationship with her mom. That is why she's like that. And I think maybe Charlie's dad should interrupt a bit more and try to understand him because he's not doing enough. There's also the time of Christmas when both of their families come together. So Nick has his family and Charlie has his family, and Charlie's grandparents are obviously quite orthodox and they make comments about his weight even though he's struggling with eating disorder. And then we come to Nick, and Nick's brother, there's zero character development from him, and he says that Charlie pretends not to eat so that he'll get Nick's attention and then Nick can come in and save the day. Those were his words. This guy will never ever have any character development or growth, and I still do not like him. Now one more thing which I really liked about this specific season was the cameo of Jonathan Bailey. Such a queer icon. I know when I saw him on my screen I shouted because I was genuinely so excited. And he basically plays this historian called Jack Maddox, which Charlie has a crush on. They go visit him because he has some sort of an event on Charlie's birthday. So I really like that this season they included both the characters' birthday, Nick's as well as Charlie's birthday. I don't think we've seen Nick's birthday before. Now while there were lots of good moments in the show, I do think there's scope for improvement and things I would expect to see from them in season 4. So I would definitely like to see more of Tara and Darcy and their relationship issues. Darcy is going through her struggles, Tara is going through her own struggles, and I did not think the season focused enough on them. They were more of like background characters, the third couple, not even the second couple this year. So I would like to see them more. Another big thing which I would like to see is Nick exploring his his mental health issues, and I would like to see how he deals with it. I've not read the novel, so I do not know, but there were slight hints of Nick drinking too much alcohol in this season, so I'm not sure if that is something which they would be touching upon or not. But honestly, if Nick has struggles with his mental health, there's a possibility that he might be drinking alcohol in order to cope with it. While I do not think that was the case this season, I do think it can be something which can be dealt upon in the next few seasons. I would like to see Nick's perspective and Nick's point of view more, because I do think he's a very interesting character. Another storyline which I would really like to see is Tao's background. I do think Tao is the character which has had really interesting character development, and I just genuinely like him and I relate to him a lot. And I would also like to see more of Mr. Ajay and Mr. Farooq. They were dating this season. I would like to see more of how they explore their identities and their relationships together, even if it's like just a tiny bit. So those were all of my thoughts on Heartstopper season 3, and if you've got any more thoughts for Heartstopper season 3, leave them in the comments. How did you feel about this season? I had so many different emotions. I thought this was a fantastic season. Was it my favorite season so far? I'm not sure, because it's a really tough competition. All 3 seasons were so great, but I did generally enjoy watching the show, and I hope there are more shows like this one, because there needs to be good queer representation. I do think Heartstopper is one of the best queer shows out there. So if you haven't already done so, then make sure that you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. This channel, I post all about being queer and just navigating my identity as a queer person of color.